Hi, my name is Hendrik Kempt. I am a research associate at the Institute of Applied Ethics at RWTH University Aachen, working in a research project regarding the medical diagnostics and their ethical components, especially when paired with artificial intelligence. And today I'm going to talk about the conditions of disagreeing with AI in cooperative medical contexts. This will have some issues regarding our responsibility distribution that I hope to line out as an emerging issue without being able to solve it yet. But I hope we will together be able to do that. For a short overview, I'm going to first try to differentiate between cooperation, coordination, co-orientation, and why we are dealing with cooperation, even if we are dealing with partially artificial agents. Second, I will discuss two main issues that we identify in disagreeing with medical AI, which is one's in the part of the anamnesis and the other one in the diagnosis. And third, collectivizing responsibility in human-machine cooperations will be the issue at hand here. First, a really quick overview. Most of you probably know this. Cooperation can be defined as working together towards a shared goal of a set of agents that cannot otherwise be achieved by the individual agents alone. The appropriate work thereby of every cooperator is a necessary condition for achieving the goal, otherwise not necessarily cooperation. The coordination, co-orientation are others. Important here is that the shared goal needs to be cooperatively achieved by people working together independently by not otherwise being able to achieve the goal alone. Medical contexts are obviously cooperative context, but it's worthy to point this out. First, we have a shared goal in medical context, and ever increasingly complex processes require cooperations between medical agents and even medical experts, even though they are experts in virtue of their ability to do medical tasks on their own. This includes physical labor as well as cognitive work. No operation is done by just one person. It is embedded in the anesthesiology, in the surgeons, in the interns, the radiologist. Everybody has to work together towards the shared goal of healing a patient. And these levels of entangled interaction are only increasing as well. We do know how to disagree in medical context as we recognize medical experts as experts. So we have to deal with peer disagreement here, where there are evidence-based sensitivities that are not necessarily resolvable by someone calling ranks, even though we have an ambiguous responsibility distributions, which means that if there is an irresolvable conflict, we do know how to have a moral hierarchy where the person above them, the chief resident or something, is taking the responsibility for a certain decision. So we have tiebreakers. These physical or cognitive contributions of a cooperative effort in medical context, especially in clinical context, is done by a diverse set of agents with a diverse set of skills and tasks, and thereby functionally can also be done by an AI. We have seen this before, and computer-based radiology has been taking off and not really taking off for quite a while. And now, thanks to AI DSS, which is decision support systems that are autonomously working, and natural language processing algorithms that actually can interact with patients, we see an increased interest in using AI and autonomous agents in medical contexts. Thereby, we are contributing to a cooperative labor sharing between AI and humans. And thereby, even though the intentionality of AI might not be clear or might actually be denied here, we can speak of a shared goal of the autonomously working AI and the human cooperator in these contexts, which is to heal patients. Two of these processes are of specific interest for us here. One is due, like the first is like due to their potential previously unencountered disagreement types, and the second one is the subsequently lack of reliable responsibility distribution. And I'm going to talk about anamnesis and diagnosis here. Anamnesis, so the the documentation of the symptoms of a patient can be exploited by AI by having a natural language processing interface with users. We have chatbots. We have very early on something like WebMD, like websites that allow for patients to type in their own basically do their own anamnesis. But we also notice that patients might prefer reporting shameful symptoms, disease to a machine rather than a doctor. On the other hand, we might encounter patients that withhold information that require the detection of social cues that an AI misses or should miss because we don't want overly sensitive AI. Comes to mind a child that is being mistreated by their parents, not telling about the reason why their arms are full with black spots or something, that a doctor might read in the demeanor of the child, while the AI is fairly happy to just go along with the story that the kid tells, and relying on AI in assessing these patients might create irresolvable communicative issues, because on the one hand, the doctor, if using such an AI, needs to rely on it, otherwise there's just double the work. On the other hand, there might be, as we have pointed out, there might be issues that the AI cannot detect. So we add another layer of communication without necessarily knowing if this is like helping anybody. These conflicts may emerge like within the anamnesis process of a doctor having to do like extra work, but it also might create conflicts between healthcare professionals among them, among each other, but also among healthcare professionals and patients, where the patient is understanding the anamnesis process very differently from the doctor because the AI interface is like in between them. These conflicts may disrupt the truth-based cooperations among doctors and nurses, but also among nurses, doctors, and other healthcare professionals and patients. The other dimension of a conflict potential here is the of diagnostic cooperation. This is due to a shared goal of precisely and efficiently diagnosing the ailment of a patient among the autonomous decision support system and doctors. We can already see, especially with IBM's Watson, a relatively sophisticated autonomous diagnostic DSS can present a diagnosis based on the same amount of evidence as the doctor, if not even more. For example, radiomics, the new trend in qualitatively analyzing given pictures or images, will provide more evidence for the machine. These diagnostic tools, however, can be interpreted in two different ways, which makes it very difficult to assess, especially if we presume, as I said in the very beginning, that we might have to deal with a cooperative context here. First, decision support system may count as additional evidence for the doctor that ought to be incorporated in the overall diagnosis. On the other hand, it is also a cooperative agent providing a diagnosis in their own right, or at least in their own ability. If it's in their own right, we have to like figure out ourselves. So it is almost impossible for a doctor using such a DSS, even though it's supposed to be a decision support system, to disagree with the system, because on the one hand, you can disagree with the diagnosis and you have second opinions that disagree with initial opinions, etc. But at the same time, DSS also counts as evidence towards something. We propose in like relying on human-human cooperation, how we assign responsibility there, that we do not have an issue in assigning collective responsibility to cooperatives. People who work together without being able to distinguish them are not necessarily individually responsible for a certain outcome, but the group is completely. In human-machine cooperations, they might become equally complex, especially in the medical field, And that means that humans and machines disagreeing in a cooperative context would not only widen the responsibility gap, but also require new approaches to individuating humans in those cooperative contexts, because we cannot assume that in a human-human cooperation where we can split down the middle 50% or just say you two are responsible for the outcome, we cannot say you two, you machine and you human are responsible for the outcome if the machine is not bearer of responsibility. Thereby, the concept of collective responsibility may be applicable here too. And lastly, collective responsibility in human-machine cooperations, however, demands the development of new rules, especially in a medical field such as the one that we talked about. Doctors cannot solely be held responsible for a negative outcome of a highly entangled cooperative situation. Collectivizing human-machine cooperations avoids the question of the responsibility gap, and yet questions of legal liability arise. Thank you for your time, and I hope to see you guys another time. Thank you.